Hello everyone. Welcome to the channel Real Spill. At 59, Natalie Victor faced the most terrifying choice of her life. End up on the street or submit to the cruelty of her own daughter. This is a story about survival and inner strength. If these stories matter to you, please subscribe. Your support means more to me than you can imagine. It's my motivation. It's the reason I keep telling these stories. And write in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's begin. Natalie Victor traded the sound of the school bell for the silence of retirement, but her soul still echoed with the of classrooms, where she, a world history teacher, once shared her knowledge. She didn't do it for a high salary, there wasn't one, but for the spark in her students' eyes, to awaken in them a hunger for learning. What mattered most to her was lighting that spark of curiosity, opening up the incredible world of the past. She was truly a master of her craft. Her lessons were anticipated, her words were absorbed, her knowledge respected. But now that the textbooks were closed, and the familiar creak of the classroom was gone, Natalie Victor felt a deep, hollow emptiness. The pension that was supposed to bring peace turned out to be nothing more than a continuation of her constant struggle to get by. Every month felt like a chess problem, how to stretch a modest amount just enough to cover the basics. Like an old, worn-out coat, her life had frayed at the edges. Yet she carried herself with quiet dignity. 15 years ago, her world collapsed when her husband, Alex Carter, her rock and the love of her life, died suddenly of a heart attack. His image, his laughter, his strong hand, all of it was etched into her memory like stone. After he was gone, life lost its bright colors, fading into something muted, like an old photograph. But Natalie Victor was strong, and she found comfort in her children, her son Ethan Carter and her daughter, Vanessa Carter. They became her reason to go on, her anchor in a storm of loss. Ethan, now 35, chose the path of dentistry. He lived in the capital, built a successful career, started a family, and was raising his own children. His life looked like a picture of success and stability. Natalie Victor was proud of him, though she always felt a certain distance between them caused by both geography and his busy life. Vanessa, 2 years younger than Ethan, had yet to find her place. At 33, she remained unemployed, relying on her husband, Michael Reed. She had always been more impulsive and emotional than her reserved brother. For the past few years, Natalie Victor had been sharing her 3-bedroom apartment with Vanessa, Michael, and their 5-year-old son Daniel Reed. The apartment bought years ago with her late husband. With every last penny they had wasn't just a place to live. It was a symbol of their love and everything they had worked for. At first, living together felt easy, like a calm river flowing steadily. Natalie Victor, kind and caring by nature, gladly helped around the house, looked after her grandson, and tried her best not to be a burden. She loved Daniel with all her heart, and his bright laughter often chased away the dark thoughts that sometimes crept in. It seemed like life, despite everything, had settled into a steady rhythm and would stay that way. But slowly, things began to change. Quiet evenings in their apartment, once filled with laughter and simple conversations, started to feel different. Vanessa began bringing up the future more and more often, talking about needing more space, about how cramped it felt with 4 people under one roof. At first, Natalie Victor didn't think much of it. She understood that young people always want better, and she genuinely felt happy for her daughter's dreams of a more comfortable life. But with each passing day, those conversations became more frequent, the hints more obvious, like a fog slowly lifting to reveal something unsettling. Vanessa would casually say over dinner, "Mom, when Daniel gets older, he'll need his own room. And what about a second child? There's already no space as it is." Or when Michael came home exhausted from work, "He needs rest after work, and here we are, practically on top of each other. Can you imagine how hard that is for him?" Natalie Victor would listen, nod, but deep inside, a quiet began to grow, a sense that something wasn't right. She tried to brush it off, blaming it on her age, on being too sensitive. One evening, after Michael had gone to bed and Daniel was asleep, Vanessa sat down next to her mother in the kitchen. Outside, a soft rain was falling, the steady rhythm of drops creating an intimate atmosphere. Vanessa seemed to use to her advantage. Natalie Victor was about to turn in for the night when Vanessa suddenly spoke, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret, though what she was about to say would feel like a blow. "Mom, Michael and I have been talking," Vanessa began, avoiding eye contact, nervously fiddling with the edge of the tablecloth. "You understand that soon there will be more of us, and we just won't fit here anymore." Natalie Victor frowned. She knew Vanessa was pregnant and had been happy about it, but it had never crossed her mind that it could become a problem for their home. But how, sweetheart? We fit just fine when you were little. Everything was okay. Vanessa let out a heavy sigh, as if explaining something obvious to a child. Mom, it's different now. Times have changed. We need our own space, our own life. She paused, gathering herself, then said it all at once, like ripping off a bandage. We think it would be better if you found yourself a one-bedroom apartment. That way it'll be more comfortable for everyone. And this place will stay with us. Natalie Victor felt the world around her freeze. The words, spoken so casually, hit her like ice water, like a hammer striking metal. She stared at her daughter, trying to process what she'd just heard. Was her own child the one she had raised, sacrificed everything for, really asking her to leave her own home? Her heart pounded in her chest, loud in her ears. A cold sweat broke across her temples, her hands trembling uncontrollably. This wasn't just a suggestion, it felt like being pushed out, cast aside from her own nest. She sat frozen, unable to speak. The air in the kitchen felt thick, almost suffocating. She looked at Vanessa, her eyes filled with shock, pain, and disbelief. This was so unexpected, so completely to everything she believed in, that her mind resisted it like it was trying to shield her from a reality too painful to accept. She had always believed that family was a fortress, where everyone stands by each other. And now that fortress was cracking, and the crack had come from within. What are you saying, Vanessa? She finally whispered, her voice shaking. This is my apartment. Your father and I spent years saving for it, denying ourselves everything. And now you're asking me to leave. Vanessa seemed ready for that reaction. Her face remained calm, unreadable, no guilt, no hesitation. Mom, it's just logical, she said evenly. We're running out of space. You can see that. Daniel is growing, and another baby is on the way. Where are we supposed to put everyone? And for you, living alone, a one-bedroom would be perfect. Not much space is needed. Natalie Victor repeated softly. And what about the memories? My whole life is here. Your father, his things, his presence, doesn't any of that matter? Mom, that's just sentimentality. Vanessa dismissed it with a wave of her hand. Life moves on. We need to think about the future, about the kids. Michael and I can't afford to rent a 3-bedroom place. You know his salary, and with your pension, you should be able to manage a small apartment, maybe in a cheaper area. We could even help you find something. Her words cut deep. My pension, Natalie Victor said quietly. Do you even know how much I get? It barely covers food. And you're telling me to pay rent too? What am I supposed to live on? What will I eat? What about my medication? Did you even think about that? Oh, Mom, don't be so dramatic, Vanessa replied, irritation creeping into her voice. You've always managed somehow, and it's not forever. Maybe later, when the kids are older, we'll figure something out. Natalie Victor closed her eyes, trying to steady the tremor that ran through her whole body. She didn't recognize her daughter anymore. The kind, compassionate girl she had raised seemed gone, replaced by someone cold, practical, almost like a stranger. She had always loved her children unconditionally, believed in them, been proud of them, and now that love felt trampled. This wasn't just a conversation about moving out, it felt like rejection, like betrayal, like a knife in the back. From that night on, everything changed. The once peaceful home turned tense, like the air before a storm. Every word, every glance carried a hidden meaning. Vanessa kept bringing up the future, but to Natalie Victor, it sounded like a constant reminder that she no longer belonged there. At breakfast, with Michael and Daniel present, Vanessa would say things like, Mom, you'd have less to clean in a smaller place. You wouldn't have to cook for everyone all the time. You could finally relax. She said it with such a sweet smile that, to an outsider, it might sound like genuine concern. But Natalie Victor heard the truth behind it. In the evenings, once Daniel was asleep, Vanessa would sit beside her again and continue. Mom, just think about it, it'll be better for everyone. We'll live our lives. You'll live yours. No one will get in each other's way. It's freedom. You can finally do what you want. Each conversation cut deeper than the last. Natalie Victor tried to push back, reminding her of their shared past, their sacrifices. Vanessa, don't you remember how hard it was for your father and me to buy this place? We did it for you, for the family. Every penny went into this home. But Vanessa wouldn't budge. Her response was always calm, almost cold. Mom, that was a long time ago. Things are different now. We can't live in the past. We have to think about the children, their future. They're our kids, not yours. Michael stayed out of it, acting as if none of it concerned him. He never defended Natalie Victor, never tried to calm his wife. His silence said everything. It was agreement, quiet approval. It seemed he fully supported Vanessa in wanting to push his mother-in-law out. One day, when Natalie, Victor found herself alone in the kitchen with Michael while he was making tea, she finally spoke up. "Michael, what do you think about all of this? Do you really believe this is right?" she asked softly, almost pleading. Michael flinched, like he'd been caught off guard. He avoided her gaze, staring down into his mug. "Natalie, Victor, well, Vanessa is pregnant, and it really is going to get cramped. You understand it's better for everyone this way. We're a family, we all have to make compromises." His words were empty, completely lacking any real concern. He didn't lift his eyes, and Natalie Victor understood she couldn't expect any help from him. He was on Vanessa's side, or rather, on the side of his own comfort. Natalie Victor felt cornered. She was hurt, offended, and afraid. She lay awake at night replaying those conversations over and over, trying to understand when her daughter had changed so much. How could the person she loved more than anything become so cold, so cruel, so ready to push her out of her own home? Tears choked her, but she tried to cry into her pillow so no one would hear, so that Daniel, her little grandson, wouldn't see her pain. She felt lost, not knowing where to go or what to do. One thought wouldn't leave her alone. How do you go on living when your own daughter no longer needs you? The days dragged on painfully slowly. Each one was filled with a heavy tension, like the air before a storm. Natalie Victor felt like a stranger in her own home, a guest who was expected to leave soon. Vanessa didn't ease the pressure. Her hints became more direct, more forceful, turning into open demands. One day, when Michael and Daniel had gone out for a walk, Vanessa brought it up again. This time her tone was firmer, almost demanding. There wasn't a trace of softness left in it. "Mom, we can't go on like this. This isn't living. We're packed in here like sardines. We've decided you need to start looking for a place. We'll help you move. I can even look up options online." Natalie Victor felt her heart tighten with pain. This was no longer a hint, it was a direct order, disguised as a caring suggestion. She made one last desperate attempt to reach her daughter, appealing to her conscience, to their past, to the values she had tried to instill in her since childhood. "Vanessa, do you even realize what you're doing? How can you treat your own mother like this? I raised you, stayed up nights so you would have everything, so you would never need anything. And now you want to throw me out of the home your father and I built with our own hands. This is our home." Her voice trembled, her eyes filled with tears. Vanessa just shrugged, as if she were tired of the whole scene. "Mom, enough with the manipulation. No one is throwing you out, we're just suggesting you find a more suitable place. For you, for us. It's called a compromise. You're a smart woman, you should understand it's better for everyone. You always said you have to make sacrifices for family. A compromise. And where is my compromise? My home, my life." Natalie Victor's voice rose, filled with desperation, like the cry of someone drowning. "You know my pension barely covers food." Vanessa made an indignant face. "And how is that our problem? We're family, we're supposed to take care of each other. And this will take care of all of us if we live separately. It'll be easier for everyone." Natalie Victor realized that all her words, all her tears, were crashing against a wall of complete indifference. Her daughter was uncheckable. There was no sympathy in her eyes, no regret, only cold determination and barely hidden impatience. That was the most terrifying realization. The person she had known and loved all her life had become a stranger. From that moment on, Natalie Victor stopped fighting. Something inside her broke, like a fragile branch snapping. She knew she had lost this battle. She felt drained, completely out of strength. She began searching. Every day she looked through listings, called real estate agents, went to view apartments. It wasn't just exhausting, it was emotionally draining. Every place she saw felt cold, lifeless, like a temporary shelter, not a home. She imagined herself inside those unfamiliar walls, alone and abandoned, and her heart tightened with sorrow. They offered her tiny, outdated apartments, often in inconvenient neighborhoods, with worn-out furniture and unpleasant smells. The prices were far beyond what her modest pension could cover. Each time she returned home with an even deeper sense of despair. Vanessa, meanwhile, seemed almost eager to track her progress, asking every evening, "So, Mom, did you find anything? Maybe I should help you look." A friend of mine recommended a site. There was impatience in her voice, as if Natalie Victor were dragging things out, though that was far from the truth. One day, during yet another viewing, Natalie Victor couldn't take it anymore. It was a tiny room with a single window facing a narrow inner courtyard, dark even during the day. The furniture was old and worn, the wallpaper peeling at the corners. The landlady, an elderly woman with a dull, tired gaze, talked about her own struggles, about how hard it was to live on a pension. Natalie Victor listened and suddenly felt an overwhelming wave of pity for herself, as if she were looking at her own future reflected back at her. She imagined living there alone, in that bleak space, counting every penny just to afford food and rent. Tears filled her eyes, and she hurried out so the landlady wouldn't see her weakness. That evening, sitting in her room, Natalie Victor opened an old photo album. In one picture, she and her husband stood, young and happy in front of their unfinished home, their future, their dream, their shared effort. Everything they had was in those walls. Every brick held their hopes, and now she had to leave it all behind. The bitterness of loss choked her like an invisible hand. It felt as if she were reliving her husband's death all over again. Back then, she had lost the man she loved, her support. Now she was losing her home, a piece of her soul. And the most painful part was that this blow had come from her own daughter. Little Daniel became her only source of comfort during those days. He sensed the change in his grandmother, even if he didn't understand why. One day, when she sat lost in thought, he came up to her. "Grandma, are you sad?" he asked, leaning against her. His small hand gently touched her cheek. Natalie Victor tried to smile. "No, sweetheart, just thinking. Are you leaving? Mom says you're going away soon. Who will read me stories and play with me?" His eyes were full of childlike worrying. Her heart clenched. She hugged him tightly. "I don't know, my dear, but I will always love you, no matter where I am. And we'll see each other, I promise." At that moment, she realized she had to stay strong for him, for his innocence. She thought about Ethan. She wanted so badly to call him, to tell him everything, to pour her heart out. But she didn't want to burden him, didn't want him in family matters. She had always tried to be strong, not to weigh her children down with her problems. But now she was at her limit. Her heart was breaking with pain and despair. Eventually, Natalie Victor found a one-bedroom apartment. Found might be too generous a word. It was small, on the outskirts, in an old, unremarkable neighborhood, almost lost in a maze of streets. But she had no choice. It was the cheapest option she could find. Even so, it cut deeply into her already meager budget, leaving her with almost nothing. Moving day was bleak, and Michael and Vanessa did help, but they did it as if it were a chore, eager to finish quickly and return to their new, more spacious life. Their movements were mechanical, their faces distant. Daniel, not understanding the full weight of what was happening, ran around asking questions. "Grandma, are you going far? Will we come visit you?" His innocent questions pierced her heart like knives. She struggled to hold back tears as she hugged him. His small body felt like the last thread connecting her to her past, when the last of her belongings were loaded into the car. Natalie Victor took one final look at her three-bedroom apartment. The walls that had witnessed so many years of her life, her joys and sorrows, now felt indifferent. She ran her hand along the wallpaper where little Ethan had once crawled, and later Vanessa, and stepped over the threshold with difficulty, as if tearing away a piece of herself. The new apartment greeted her with silence and the smell of dust. Loneliness fell over her like a heavy blanket. Her simple furniture looked bulky and out of place in the small space. Like it didn't belong, she unpacked mechanically, without any feeling. Every item reminded her of her past life, of the home she had lost. When Vanessa and Michael left, silence settled in. A crushing, ringing silence that filled her ears. Natalie Victor sat in the middle of the empty room and broke down. She cried for a long time, silently, covering her mouth so no one would hear, so her weakness would remain hers alone. They were tears of despair, of hurt, of loneliness. She felt hollow, as if a part of her soul had been torn out. Her home, her fortress, her refuge now belonged to someone else. And those people were her own family. Money barely covered food. She planned every purchase carefully, denying herself everything just to make it to the next pension payment. Breakfasts became minimal, lunches repetitive, dinners almost symbolic. Hunger became a constant reminder of her new life. She often felt weak and exhausted, but she kept going, refusing to give up. What would happen next? How would she survive? These questions tormented her, giving her no peace. There was only exhaustion and sadness, mixed with a faint trace of hope. She saw genuine remorse in Vanessa's eyes, heard the pain in her voice. And although her heart still tightened with old hurt, the love she had never stopped feeling for her daughter took over like a powerful river, sweeping away every barrier. She stepped forward and hugged Vanessa tightly, as if trying to make up for all the months they had been apart. Vanessa buried her face in her shoulder and broke down in sobs. Her whole body shook. Natalie Victor gently stroked her hair, while tears streamed down her own cheeks. These were tears of relief, tears of forgiveness, tears of long-held pain finally finding a way out. "I forgive you, my daughter," Natalie Victor said quietly, her voice hoarse with emotion. "I have always loved you, no matter what, and I always will." In that moment, it was as if an invisible wall that had stood between them for so long finally collapsed. They stood there for a long time, holding each other, crying out everything that had built up in their hearts over those difficult months. They sat down in the kitchen, and Vanessa told her everything about her struggles, her worries, the sleepless nights, and the heavy weight on her heart. Natalie Victor listened, nodding, occasionally offering gentle, wise advice like a seasoned mentor. Their conversation was long, honest, and healing like a balm for wounded souls. From that day on, the relationship between mother and daughter began to heal. It was a long and difficult road, filled with doubts and awkward moments, but both of them were willing to walk it. Vanessa began visiting her mother more often, helping around the house, bringing groceries. She tried to rebuild the trust she had broken, to restore what had been lost. They went shopping together, cooked Natalie Victor's favorite meals, and simply talked heart to heart. Natalie Victor felt her heart slowly thawing, the pain gradually fading. She could see that Vanessa's remorse was sincere, that she had truly changed. One of the hardest parts was repairing Vanessa's relationship with Ethan. She knew her brother was still angry, and it weighed heavily on her. One day, when Ethan came to visit Natalie Victor, Vanessa was there too. The meeting was tense. "Ethan," Vanessa said quietly, "I'd like to talk. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. What I did was terrible. I was wrong toward Mom and toward you." Ethan stayed silent for a long moment, looking at his sister. The hurt was still visible in his eyes. Natalie Victor watched them anxiously, hoping they could find a way to understand each other. "I don't know, Vanessa," Ethan finally said, "what you did. It's hard to forgive. Mom went through so much because of you." "I know," Vanessa replied softly, "and I'm ready to take responsibility. I want to make things right. I want us to be a family again." Her words were sincere. Seeing her remorse and understanding how much this meant to their mother, Ethan softened. He didn't forgive her right away, but he took the first step toward reconciliation. They talked for a long time, working through everything that had built up between them. It was painful, but necessary. Despite the pain Vanessa had caused, Natalie Victor never stopped loving her. A mother's love doesn't fade, no matter the hurt or disappointment. She was grateful that, even if it came late, her daughter had realized her mistake, and now she could hold her daughter again, knowing that despite all the scars of the past, their family was beginning to find its warmth and wholeness once more. As time passed, Natalie Victor's life regained its meaning. She continued living in her one-bedroom apartment, but she no longer felt alone there. Ethan kept supporting her, and Vanessa, having learned a hard lesson, became a more attentive and caring daughter. She visited often, helped with chores, and brought the grandchildren. Her greatest joy became her grandchildren. Daniel, now a little older, came to visit often. He was once again her ray of light, her happiness. She read him stories, played with him, taught him how to count and write, and even her little granddaughter, born to Vanessa, brought her immense joy. One day, while they were playing with clay, Daniel asked, "Grandma, why do you live here and not with us?" Natalie Victor smiled. "That's just how things turned out, sweetheart. But what matters is that we're still together, right? And we love each other." "Yes," Daniel exclaimed, hugging her. "I love you so much." Those words meant more to Natalie Victor than anything in the world. She realized that despite all the trials, life goes on, that forgiveness is strength, and love is what matters most. She found a new sense of purpose helping Vanessa with the children, sharing her wisdom and experience. She no longer saw herself as a victim of circumstances, but as a strong woman who had endured pain and found the strength to forgive. Her relationships with her children became deeper and more meaningful. They learned to value each other, to understand the importance of family and forgiveness, and although the scars of the past remained, they served as a reminder of the journey they had been through, of how important it is to cherish those we love. Natalie Victor, once a teacher of world history, was now writing her own story, a story of forgiveness, love, and renewal, and she knew it was the most important story of her life.